What's up, fish tank people? Dustin's Fish Tanks bringing it to you on a Sunday, baby. How's everybody doing? I hope you're doing well. In today's video, we're going to talk about stocking the 10-gallon aquarium. Everybody asked me, what kind of fish should I get? I'm going to answer that question for you today. But first, I'm going to talk about how I would set up a 10-gallon aquarium. I'm going to give you a low-budget way to do it, as well as a little bit fancier way to do it. Then I'm going to get myself cleaned up. We're going to roll out to Greenhouse 2.0. I'm going to talk about some plant ideas. Then I'm going to give you 3 or 4 different styles and flows of different fish for your 10-gallon aquarium. Real quick, tiny bit of woo-woo with you all. This will be the first winter in like 5 years that I won't have a warm, humid, hot, well-lit, aquarium-filled greenhouse this winter. 1.0 is going to sit empty for the first time in almost 6 years this winter. Alright, so what do we want with our 10-gallon tank? Remember folks, people in life don't get what they want because they don't know what they want, which is why I write down my goals, what I want, every day. It's kind of human programming, gets you focused on making sure you're working on what is important to you. What is important to you in your 10-gallon aquarium? What kind of 10-gallon aquarium do you want to set up? Do you want this to just be sitting in a room, it's in your kid's room, you're hardly going to mess with it, low tech, low amount of fish loads, hardly any light? Or do you want something fancier? Do you want more lush plant growth? Maybe you want higher light, higher plant loads, higher fish loads, and you want to set up your 10-gallon tank differently. I'm going to tell you how I would set up a 10-gallon aquarium out of the gate and why. Let's talk about one of the downsides of a 10-gallon aquarium out of the gate. In a 10-gallon aquarium, you do not have that much room for error. Most people getting a 10-gallon aquarium might be setting it up for the first time, which is unfortunate because once you get into that 20, 30, 40-gallon and on up, bigger volumes of water, you have more room for error. In a 10-gallon aquarium, you do not have that much room for error. There is a positive with the size of a 10-gallon aquarium. I would point it out like this. Anyone who has kept a planted aquarium that is heavily stocked for a long time will note and see the difference when a heavily planted aquarium, when your plant load is significantly higher than your fish load, everything seems to work a little bit easier. Now, how do you increase your plant load? Plants eat at their roots. 10-gallon aquarium, I'm going to dirt. I'm moving quick here. I would dirt a 10-gallon aquarium because your plants absorb 400 to 400 times more nutrients through their roots than through their stems and leaves. How many times are you gonna tell us that? Enough until you get it into your head. Think like a plant. Where would you eat? You eat at your roots. So there really is no downside to dirting your 10-gallon aquarium because it's not that hard to redo or undo if you mess it up. Okay, with your tank now dirted, your plants will have an almost endless smorgasbord of food to eat from and grow rapidly in your small, easy to light 10-gallon tank. Speaking of a giant smorgasbord, I'm going to go out to Greenhouse 2.0 and show you a smorgasbord of plants to use in your 10-gallon aquarium. Then we're going to talk about stocking ideas. I'm going to talk about plants that do good in dirt and plants that don't need any dirt at all. Let me get cleaned up real quick though. And as if I cannot beat you enough with the roots routine and dirting your tank, this is a head of lettuce that is about to go on my sandwich. Look at what is still intact on this head of lettuce. It's a beautiful head of romaine lettuce or whatever the heck it is. The root is still intact. Why? Because the beautiful leafy part can absorb the nutrients that are in the roots right here on this head of lettuce, making this delicious piece of lettuce wonderful and improving the sandwich that I'm about to make. Got it? Roots are important. Go Cats. Neighbors get it done. There's the man behind all the videos right there. I want to show what's going on out here. We have half of the solar pool cover, 16 millimeter pool cover on there. I attempted to put the old one from 1.0 on here with a total fail. I wish you could have seen that on video with me trying to pull it in the wind. But regardless, this has done a nice job for us. We clipped it in there and that'll retain heat. It's all about keeping heat in. Let me show you what we got going on inside of here though. I don't know if you can hear the mariachi sounds, but the dude's pouring concrete next door every now and then belt out, and they sing and it's fabulous. Let's roll inside the steamy hot greenhouse here. Notice condensation. Loving it in here. All right, so it is way warmer in here than it is outside. Quick tour before we show you some of the plants we're talking about. You want a quick lesson right here. This is HYGROPHILA, CORDATA red, gangster hygro. Notice there's tiny little specks of algae on here. That's because the plant load got reduced. So when you reduce plant load and you keep the light levels high, algae can stick its ugly head. There's some bulbitis in here. Let's roll over here. I want to show you all some of the new LUDWIGIA in the house. LUDWIGIA Aquarium. How do you say it, Ryan? ARCUATA? ARCUATA. We've had it in for all of like a week. It's starting to get those red tips over here. LUDWIGIA PANTANAL, I believe it is. Basically not for sale because I've seen how it looks when it grows out. You can see it kind of bubbling there. And then over here, folks, we've got LUDWIGIA White. We've been selling a heckload of it. So not a lot of it left, actually. We went through about half of it. But these are super fun tanks. But then we've got all kinds of crazy moss going on right here. These would be great. This is down here. This is peacock moss right here. Every species of moss has its own tank, which makes things kind of fun. Andrew, I hope you're catching that because it's some pretty killer moss right there. This would be great along the bottom. Great for shrimp. Growing in its own setup right here. Super pumped about that. Over here through the weeds, we've got the mini Christmas moss, and I'll bring it to you, bro. Mini Christmas moss, super sweet right here. Like, wow! Christmas moss, only a tighter pattern. It's got its own 33L. Totally loving the way that this plant is treating us. It's not one that you would put in a 10 gallon, but this is water sprite. Super pumped to have that finally back rolling. And then we got Riccardia moss that was originally floating, but now is not. Little burlier structure to this. It's a little more brillo-y than some of the other moss that we keep in. But this would be all these mosses. We run them with no heater. They go down to about 68. Super easy to keep. We just float them all in their own individual tanks. I showed you mini Christmas moss. This is just regular Christmas moss. Coming up out of here, a little bit more loose pattern. Not quite as tight, not quite as defined. But all of our mosses are growing underwater, which is super duper fun. Easy one for a 10 gallon aquarium. This is a fun one right here. It would go easy in a 10 gallon SUBWASSERTANG. The Germans. Literally translates to, I think, freshwater seaweed. Super cool. Just kind of float it, let it roll around. I used this in a 10 gallon a while back. SUBWASSERTANG would be an easy one. And this is one of the plants. I don't know how big it will get compared to a 10 gallon. Might be a little too large in the scale of things, but oh my goodness, look at the ruffled leaves on HYGROPHILA. I have not kept this plant for long. We're getting new growth coming out of here. Super duper excited to have these rolling. We've also got, I'll bring it over to you, Andrew. We've got the TROPICAs right here that came in, melted back, but then are coming back with a vengeance like that. So that's all the old above water growth, and then that's all the new growth. Super excited to be having those in the mix. And then over here, if you have really good light, the narrow Stauro, it's a little bit finicky though, so I wouldn't recommend that for a beginner. But if you have highlights in a 10 gallon tank, remember a 10 gallon tank is easy to light because it's shallow. You might try some narrow Stauro. And I want to show two types of HYGROPHILA that would be absolutely fabulous in a 10 gallon aquarium. They stay small. This is HYGROPHILA PINNATIFIDA right here, and we've been converting this. You can see some of the nasty stuff that's melted off, but this is just a random pole, new growth, PINNATIFIDA. Likes a little bit more light. Could actually be attached to a piece of driftwood or a rock. But I love the pattern on the HYGROPHILA PINNATIFIDA. HYGROPHILA Compact, I was calling them Hygro Red because they've got red on them, but they've got the red rolling. High light to keep the red. With lower light, it would not be quite as red. And then I've got another one here. It's a type of ECHINODORUS, although I think they've reclassified it. I don't care. I don't get into the nerdy debates like that. I've talked about it in other videos. This is ECHINODORUS QUADRICOSTATUS that we've just let go on its own. There's all the above water growth. Here's all the below water growth coming on strong like Donkey Kong. And you could just plant these and this would just run all along the bottom. You can see all the above water growth that we just would peel off. But this plant, totally great for a 10 gallon aquarium as well. Heavy root feeder, so you'd want to do this in dirt, although it's not in dirt in here and it's doing just fine. And you can see this is how we experiment with the crypts and the growth or whatever. This is the crypt PARVA. Rachel Leary has a nice shot of how this plant grows with heavy root feeding right here. It's a little underwater grown crypt PARVA. This is another crypt over here. That's these are all grown in dirt. That's how you do it. That's how you get the new growth, because plants eat at their roots. This is another a bronze reddish crypt that we're enjoying with the big root structure on it as well. Right here, this guy. Crypts are up there with swords as far as like heavy root feeding. We see a big difference in the growth rates when they have the ability to eat from their roots. Okay, so before we talk about the fish, we're going to talk about the plants, because when you have more plants, you can have more fish. What do you want in your 10-gallon aquarium? You want a heavy plant load and the potential to have a heavier fish load. I'm talking about dirt in the tank here. Let's talk about some options with plants to go along the bottom in a carpeting style. Carpeting plants would be fabulous in a 10-gallon tank. You could get away with baby tears. Some people call it Monte Carlo. I'm not sure of the difference. However, baby tears, you can see it growing here in my Flu Ball B26. Grows rampantly along the bottom. You can also see it here in my old rainbow fish tank, mixed in with another plant known as dwarf sage. Both of these are my number one, number two as far as like easy rooting plants that would go great along the bottom of a 10-gallon aquarium. They'll grow rampantly. They'll grow out of control. They'll give you more plant load and enable more fish load. But what if you're not down with a carpeting plant? Let's talk about something you could simply get away with that would make a nice breeding zone for other types of fish. You want something simple, you want something easy, you want something not dirty. I got plants for you on that in your 10-gallon aquarium. Talk about the easiest plant ever. Let's talk about hornwort. It doesn't have roots. It's just kind of all one giant floating mass. You could use this plant and float it like crazy. It's an incredible nitrate absorbing sponge. You could also do Elodea anacris. Wouldn't even need a heater for these two plants, or this third one, Cabamba caroliniana. Guess where it's from? Carolina. It's also illegal in a bunch of states, but regardless, you could use Cabamba, Elodea anacris, and hornwort. You could just have a giant growing, don't need dirt, don't care, low light setup that would go nuts. Those plants would grow fast, and you could have more fish because you have a high plant load. But what if you wanted to do something with driftwood? What could we do with driftwood? I know! How about plants like Anubias? Anubias alphazelli, Anubias nana, Anubias nana petite. There's also, you know I'm going to talk about it, Bucephalandra. That's right, you can make tiny little boost trees all over the place in a 10-gallon aquarium. Nothing to do with dirt, doesn't matter. Now the downside with Anubias, Boost, there's also some ones we're going to talk about in a second, is that they are slower growers. So you're going to need a lot more of them, and you're not going to be able to have quite as high of a fish load because Anubias, Boost, also things like Java Fern. In fact, we're stocking Wendelov, latifolia, and plain Jane regular Java Fern these days. They're not as fast growers, so they're not going to give you that nitrate absorption. So you're going to need a lot of them initially, and they're not going to grow fast. So you're going to want to take it easy on your fish load. And the ideas for setting up a 10-gallon aquarium are always fun to hear. I would love to get your feedback down in the comments on how you either set up or have seen set up a 10-gallon aquarium, both plants, fish, whatever. And if you like this kind of content, make sure you hit that notification button and consider hitting the subscribe button. And now here come my top 5 types of fish that you could stock a 10-gallon aquarium with. My number 5, I'm talking to the 5-year-olds. I'm talking bubble, 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 guppy, guppy, guppies. That's right, parents, you've seen bubble guppies. What does it take to breed guppies? 2 guppies and water. That's it. You could go entirely low tech. You could have the hornwort, you could have the Elodea, you could have the Cabamba, and you could have guppies breeding like crazy. You would barely even need a light for this tank, right? Bubble, 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 guppy, guppy, guppies. Get as fancy as you want, or buy feeder guppies that have a tiny little bit of color on them and breed them like crazy. We got guppies in here in 2.0 right now. Guppies would be a fabulous one. They're cheap, they're hardy, they breed like crazy. Guppies would be a super easy one. My number 5 in my top 5 fish for a 10-gallon aquarium. And my number 4 in my top 5 types of aquarium fish for a 10-gallon aquarium. We're going from guppies, we're classing it up a little bit. I remember when I was a 14-year-old kid at Myers in Findlay, Ohio, and seeing that I could buy Danios for 39 cents. And as a 14-year-old kid, I had 39 cents. It was fabulous. Danios, slightly more aggressive, doesn't matter, you're gonna put them in a 10. They hardly need any sort of heat at all. They're kind of like a little more rowdy schoolers, so they're not quite as chill. You saw last week's video. But Danios, surface dweller, like zipping all around, nice little school, got some color on them. If you want to get fancier, you could get, there's like some leopard Danios or whatever. Danios would be a great thing. And then you could roll on the bottom of all these, actually. You could roll with like some Amano shrimp living down in the moss. You could run with a giant mystery snail down there. Danios on top, mysteries along the bottom. Danios, my number 4 in my top 5 fish for a 10-gallon aquarium. We're staying small, we're staying with schools, we're moving up from Daniel's, we're moving to my number 3 in my top 5 fish for a 10 gallon. I'm talking about the cherry barbs, folks. Cherry barbs. Not as mean as tiger barbs, stay small, easy to identify the male and the females. You could get 2 males, you could get 2 females, and then a little bit later you could add some more cherry barbs. Bright color, dark moss along the bottom, dwarf sage along the bottom, baby tears along the bottom, cherry barbs swimming around up top. I tried to add some of these to my girl Marnice's tank. She loved them. They also come in a long fin variety. Cherry barbs, baby. I would love to see you add some cherry barbs. And my number 2, and my favorite fish for a 10-gallon aquarium setup. I talk about these fish all the time. They deserve to be talked about more than I'm talking about them. I'm talking about the neon tetra. That's right, folks. Neon tetras. Super simple colors. You got your primary colors. They're blue, they're red, they're beautiful, they school, they're readily available. They're not that hardy compared to the other ones that I have just mentioned. Now, here's how you roll with neon tetras, and this is a nice trick. You only want to add a few at a time. You never want to go and buy the entire school. You want to buy a little bit of fish at a time. So with neon tetras, adding them to a 10-gallon aquarium, you could add them 2, then in 2 weeks add 2 more, then in 2 weeks after that add 2 more, then add 2 more, then add 2 more. But you never really want to add a ridiculous amount of neons at once because you want the bio load to slowly absorb the extra poop that's coming out of your slowly increasing neon tetra school. You want to go nice and slow with the neons. You also don't want to go too crazy with the water changes with the neons. I'm taking neons over cardinals, by the way, because neons can handle a little bit more fluctuation than the old school cardinals. Cardinals like a lower pH and a little bit warmer water. Roll with neon tetras, readily available. Neon tetras, my number 2 in my top 5 fish for a 10-gallon aquarium. And my number 1 fish in my top 5 fish for a 10-gallon aquarium. It's easy. You can get them at Walmart. You can get them at any color of the rainbow, any fish style you want. I am talking about the betta fish. There is no better fish than the betta fish, right? My betta fish here at 2.0 Platinum Pock might like me more than my mom does. Thanksgiving is coming up. I can say that. Yes! Betta fish! Betta fish! Betta fish! They're easy. If they can survive living in basically a cup at Walmart, they can certainly survive in your 10-gallon aquarium. And they're going to greet you like a happy dog every time you walk up to the tank and feed them. The only remote downside to betta fish is they like water slightly warmer. I had one betta fish in an old preschool. It was an old ADA rimless tank that I gave to Miss Drinker because she is a saint of a woman at where my kids used to go to preschool at Summit Christian Academy. I dirted it, I dwarf saged it, I gave her the tank. It may have been 3 gallons, and all that lived in there was 1 betta fish and a ridiculous amount of dwarf sage, and all the preschoolers went nuts. It was fabulous, folks. I'd have betta fish all along this wall if I could, and I should. Everybody make it an awesome week. Hit the notification button, the subscribe button. Drop me a comment on your favorite fish in a 10-gallon and tank on.